What's good, my friends? Welcome to episode 981, Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you to everyone out there, as always, for listening, for watching, however you consume Talking Buffalo. You guys are the best. I appreciate you very, very much. I also appreciate and respect today's sponsor, Sunny Reds, 1531 Abbott Road, literally minutes away from Highmark Stadium. Some of the best wings. Matter of fact, I'm recording this, and literally after 15, 20 minutes or so, when this wraps, I am going up there to get some wings. 50-cent wing night, by the way. Wednesday nights, 50-cent wings. You ain't going to find a better special in Western New York when you combine price with quality, period. But anyway, wings, food, drinks, a great vibe, a great place to be. Sunny Reds. Before we get into today's episode, too, I want to throw this out there. Some love, some shine to my friends over at the Buffalo Wing Coalition. They have a website and they do such tremendous work. They got wing reviews. They have a pyramid of how they rank all their wings. A lot of them in really good detail, but something that they have that everybody out there who likes wings, I'm sure, would be interested in knowing is wing specials. Shit's so expensive nowadays, and you always want to go try to find the cheaper places where you could go on a night where they got specials. Well, Buffalo Wing Coalition, Monday through Friday, you put in any night of the week you want on their tab, and bam, a list comes up of all the places that have a wing special that night. The name of the place, the phone number, the address, the whole 9 yards. They do such good work there. So much love to Buffalo Wing Coalition. Go check them out. Go check out what specials are going on each night of the week, where they got their wings ranked. It's a great place to be. Anyway, this is not a wings episode, although I'm talking myself into being really, really hungry right now. This is our Podbag episode. This is the episode where you control the narrative, the topics of the show, your questions, your comments, your takes. I pull them from our YouTube channel, tweets, emails, all that stuff, and I combine it into what I like to call an interactive episode where you ask the questions or you bring up the takes, and I spend the time responding to them. As always, the heavy bulk of these are Buffalo Bills related, but I do have one Sabres one. There's a wrestling one near the end, and then there's one about a TV show, which we'll get into, but that's a little bit later on. The rest of these pretty much all Buffalo Bills. And without further ado, let's just jump into them because I don't want to take up too much of your time. And I got a lot that I want to get to. Let's start right away. At KNAS19 says, Bills building the draft. We aren't getting blown out by teams. We don't need to jeopardize the future of the team by going all in on one player. Let me ask you this. This is for you and anyone who thinks along that way. And by the way, thank you very much for the comment. I truly appreciate it. But let me ask you this question, okay? And be honest with yourself when answering. How many cracks, legitimate cracks at the proverbial piñata do you expect the Buffalo Bills to get? The piñata, of course, being a Super Bowl. How many cracks at that do you expect the Buffalo Bills to get with a prime year's Josh Allen as your quarterback? That's a question you need to start asking yourself, okay? Because Josh Allen, and trust me, nobody loves Josh Allen more than I do, and I'm very vocal about it as well. The guy is playing on a level as good as anybody in the NFL, not just quarterbacks, any player, period, okay? I've been very loud and proud about it. Josh Allen should be your MVP, which, by the way, we'll find that out Thursday night. Probably not going to win, but I still think he's deserving. But here's my point. You got prime Josh Allen right now, playing on a level that's great. He's going into his 8th season, okay? And the way Josh Allen plays football, that reckless abandon, the physicality, him running with the ball, him running people over, the tush pushes, the hits he takes, him not missing games because of injury, playing in 100 consecutive games, all that stuff. How many more years do you expect him to be able to play at that peak level that he's playing at right now? Because that's where you're going to get the cracks at the piñata, right? Right now, the Buffalo Bills cannot get over the hump. They just can't. That's not an opinion. We've seen it play out every year since 2020. Okay. 4 losses in the playoffs to the Chiefs. We'll throw one in there in the divisional round to the Bengals for good measure. And in a lot of these losses, not the first Chiefs loss, not the Bengals loss, but 3 of the 4 against the Chiefs, they were literally an impact player away or a few plays away from playing football this Sunday. I wouldn't be having a pod bag today, right now. Okay. If they had one more really impactful player or made a couple more plays with what they had, we'd be doing a Bills-Eagles Super Bowl preview right now. That would be the theme of the show. I get pretty sick just thinking about that, by the way. But we're not. We're not. Because they need another player. They need an impact player. And I think, for sure this year, this was not even, AFC Championship game. You win the game, you're obviously in the Super Bowl. I think the year before that, if they beat the Chiefs at home, I think they go on to beat Baltimore, who was fraudulent last year, just like the Chiefs did on the road. Bills might be going to back-to-back Super Bowls right now. Like, legit. And we all know about 2021, 13 seconds. It could be the Bills going on a dynasty, historic type run right now. If they had another impact player or made a couple more plays. That's what it's come down to in these games. I think it's time, if you're not already, it is time to start being a lot more locked in on the now, the present, as opposed to the future. And, when you say, throwing away the future, you're talking about draft picks. Look, as for the draft, Brandon Beane has done a lot of good things, man. He's done a lot of good things. He is so good at finding low-key, under-the-radar players who become so much more than what you thought they were going to be when they first signed. Matt Collins is a great example. Ty Johnson, a great example. Plenty of players like that, okay? And he's also done a really good job at looking at positions, in-house evaluations. We don't need this guy. We could be just fine without this guy. We'll make, this is our new offensive line. We'll slide Connor McGovern from guard to center, and our line will be just fine. It was. Like, all those moves, in-house evaluation stuff, he's been elite. And he's done really, really well, for the most part, with the draft, too. Especially when it comes to, the third round and beyond. He has found some real gems. Bernard, Cook, Shakir, Benford. Keep going on. Teron Johnson in the 4th round. So many good players that aren't premium picks. But these number 1 picks, their first overall picks, not so much, man. Not so much. Kyrie Elam has been a disaster. Dalton Kincaid, injuries played a role, lots of factors, but didn't help this team too much this season, did he? Keon Coleman, promising rookie year, gets hurt. Not the same player when he comes back this year. Like, those guys right now, when you got Josh Allen in his prime, are not helping this team get over the hump. They're not. Okay? You can make a case, and I'm being a little bit unfair, at least to Dalton Kincaid, because, again, I know about what he's played through this year, but Kyrie Elam, Dalton Kincaid, 2 recent first-round picks. Not only did they not help the Bills get over the hump against the Chiefs, they were literally detrimental to the Bills' Super Bowl chances a couple weeks ago, right? So if you get a chance, and I know ultimately this is what you're referring to Myles Garrett or maybe Max Crosby. But if you could go get one of those guys and the cost is going to say be 2 firsts or more, like, let's say the cost is going to be 2 firsts and maybe you got to give up a second and you get a third back, or you give up a third, you get a 4th back. So say if 2 firsts and a pick swap somewhere along those lines. I think it would be lunacy at this point, absolute lunacy, to not pull that trigger if you're Brandon Beane. Like, I would question the Bills' commitment to winning a Super Bowl in 2025 as opposed to worrying about the next 4 or 5 years beyond that if you have an opportunity to go get one of those guys and you don't. So, and then you said jeopardizing the future. I see, and that's another thing. I don't buy it. Again, if you're talking about Crosby, you're talking about Myles Garrett or Garrett Miles, you're talking about guys right now, they're not in their mid-30s. It's not like Von Miller near the end of his career. You're talking about guys who are still, not even 30 yet. Like, they're in their prime now, and they should be in their prime for their next 3, 4, 5, 6 years, where they're going to be elite players, elite level players, as long as they can stay healthy. So you're giving up, whatever, like I say, whatever the picks may be. I don't think you're jeopardizing the future because they're not 1-year rentals. Now, if you were doing this in, late October, early November, and you're giving up a first rounder and a third rounder to go get, let's say Micah Parsons, for an example, and he's only a half-year rental and he's going to be a free agent afterwards, that's different. That is mortgaging and potentially jeopardizing your future. But I don't think you're jeopardizing your future by giving up a first, multiple firsts, or whatever it takes to go get a guy who's still relatively young and kind of like in the thick of his prime, who's going to be good for years to come. Let me ask you this one last question here. Let's stay with Myles Garrett here, okay? If Myles Garrett were to be traded to the Buffalo Bills, okay, and you had to give up 2 firsts and a pick swap to go get him, okay, and you're concerned about his play at some point of his contract falling off a cliff, but you go get him, and in a game, in the AFC Championship game, you have a rematch again with the Chiefs, and unlike the Bills' edges, guys who did nothing, Myles Garrett makes a big play, and the Bills go on to win that game. They get to a Super Bowl. They win a Super Bowl. Sometime in the next 2 years, Garrett gets you to a Super Bowl, wins you a Super Bowl, and then in year 3, his play falls off a cliff, bigger than Niagara Falls. I mean, all of a sudden the guy sucks. He's washed up. He can't play no more. And you're kind of stuck with a shitty contract for the last 2 years of him. It's hard to get out of. You're kicking the can down the road, blah, blah, blah. Whatever you want to say, his play gets sucked into the abyss. Are you signing up for that? Because if you're not, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? The goal is to win a Super Bowl. What's the phrase? Just one before I die? And a guy like that can help you get that one? Let's worry about afterwards. The Bills need to be all in at this point for a lot of reasons. This needs to be the offseason. Brandon Beane gets that veteran, maybe 2 veterans that combine with peak Josh Allen and a nice young core, some of them still ascending right now, that get you to where you need to go. I got zero problem throwing around any heavy draft capital to get it done because lots of reasons, but none so more than you got Josh Allen in his prime. You're still whacking away at that piñata, but you're only going to get a certain amount of more whacks before Josh Allen ultimately starts to slow down. It's human nature, right? Ted says, how should the Bills handle Greg Rousseau this offseason? It could go so many ways. Good question, Ted. And it's a fascinating topic because it could go a lot of ways. It could go so many ways. As things stand right now, this is the last year coming up of Greg Rousseau's deal. He's got a 5th-year option. The Bills exercise that. As of right now, $13.387 million this year. That's guaranteed. Then after that, he'll be a free agent, an unrestricted free agent. The simple way to think about it is this. Let this year play out. He's under contract, like I said, a little under $13.5 million this year. If you want to, you try to re-sign him after the season. And if you absolutely want him and you can't work out a long-term deal, you do have a franchise tag that is sitting around in your back pocket, for sure. Now, the downside of that is the price could go up even more. So if you just want to let things play out and Greg Rousseau goes out and has a career year in 2025, that price of poker is going to go up more, potentially significantly more. It's going to be harder to re-sign him long-term if he has a good 2025. And if you do, it's going to be more money. The open market, the competition. He gets through the next season. He plays great. Well, why do I want to settle on this offer for the Bills? I think maybe my agent tells me he's hearing whispers that the Jaguars or the Bears or the Commanders will give me even more money. Give me an extra year. Give me more guaranteed money up front because that's what it's all about is the guaranteed money for NFL players, rightfully so, right? So that creates competition in the open market. If you want to use the franchise tag, fine. But here's the thing with the franchise tag. So we don't know for sure, obviously, what it'll be this next year. We don't even know what it's going to be for sure this year, but you could count out it being somewhere around $22, $23 million. The Bills could say, all right, well, we're going to tag you. You're getting $23 million for 2026. That's guaranteed the second he signs that. And all that money immediately goes to that year's cap. You can't, unless you get him an extension after, you can't spread that out. You can't prorate it, any of that stuff. That's 22, 23 million or whatever ends up being all on the cap for 2026. That's going to make it really hard for the Bills to absorb, to be able to do other business. So that is absolutely not ideal for the Bills. There's upsides to having an extension done this offseason. He is still a young player. He's only going to be playing age 25 this season. He's a core player, an opportunity to lock up a core guy, and his play still may, I don't know for sure, but it still may be ascending. Right now, as things stand, he is far and away your best current edge player on this football team. It's not even close either. So extending him right now gets you, and this is a financial, bonus to doing something this offseason. You're trying to create cap room right now. You want to go make a couple moves. You want to do some things, whether it's another edge guy next to him, a corner, whatever it may be. And you're trying to find more operating room, a receiver. If you were to extend Greg Rousseau right now, even if you give him big ass money, $25 million a year or whatever it may be, you could take his cap number for that first year and it'd be very small. You know how it works when a guy gets a big contract. Those first year, maybe the second year, that cap number's small, and then it gets really big, and that's when you keep kicking the can down the road and restructuring. But you could probably save $8, maybe $9 million, at least $8 million compared to what his cap number is for right now. If you were to extend him, probably give you $7 or $8 million in operating room just by doing that right now for this year. So lots of upsides, but there's a downside, definitely a downside. Spot Rack, a site, who I respect greatly, they got his value right now at around $25 million per year. $25 million. That is a shitload for a dude who's never had more than 8.5 sacks in any season of his career. 4 years in now, too. And I have concerns about him being anything more than somebody who is a very good player. Right now, I think he's a very good player. Do I think he is an elite player? No, I don't. I don't think he is an elite player. I'm not sure that you could be an edge rusher in today's NFL and be considered an elite player if you're not even getting double-digit sacks. So that concerns me. And also, I'm concerned about what I saw less than 2 weeks ago. And I will refer to, after the Bills lost to the Bengals, I sat down. I'll never forget the conversation. Tyler Dunn joined me at Imperial Pizza. And this was, again, after they lost to the Bengals. And the conversation turned into so many star players on the Bills are regular season dynamos who kind of face plant in the playoffs, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Not only defense, but especially the defense. And I thought about that with Greg Rousseau because he stunk against the Chiefs in this title game. No excuse for it either. And that needs to matter. And make no mistake about it, he was lousy in that football game, okay? Forget about being great. Forget about being that impactful guy who's going to make that big fourth quarter stop to help your team win a conference championship. He just flat out stunk. He did nothing that game. In fact, he was a detriment. How many times did he get caught not containing on the edge? Did he get pulled and sucked inside? How many plays did he make in that game? Exactly. That matters to me. You got to carry weight. With what a guy does in the playoffs, it needs to hold water. So paying him that much money is scary. And potentially, not for sure, but maybe also paying him that much money. If you're going to go take a big swing and you want to give him a big ass 5-year, $100-some million extension right now, does that take away Brandon Beane's ability or even willingness to go get a dominant edge rusher alongside of him? Because if it is, then it becomes an easy no for me. My personal verdict is this. I'm not extending him this offseason, and I understand that it comes with a risk. I do. That Kansas City game scared me off. I'm just going to be honest with you. For me, big money needs to go to an edge guy, and I know he does a lot of things well. Kansas City game aside, he's really good on the edge. He sets it well. He's good against the run. Does a lot of things really well. Okay, but you're going to go give a guy $25 million a year I need you to get 11 to 15 sacks a season. And Groot just ain't that dude. We've seen nothing in 4 years now to suggest that he's going to be that dude. So let this year play out, revisit it next year, and understanding, which you got to understand, it could cost you more. It could cost you more. Or you could lose him. Or you could tag him and have to eat up a shitload of cap space in 2026. You got to understand all the pitfalls for that. But the potential bad in that, to me, is less harmful than giving this guy top 5 to 7 edge rusher money in the NFL when he simply put is not a top 5 to 7 edge rusher in the NFL. All this said, like, I'm not going to be kicking and screaming here. I'm not going to be having temper tantrums like I'm about to later on with the Buffalo Sabres in the show, where if you give him an extension, it's not going to make me that mad. As long as it doesn't prevent them from getting another guy alongside him that's going to make this defense way better. Like, go get me somebody, whether Groot is playing out his 5th year or whether Groot just signs a 6-year, $10 gazillion billion extension. I don't give a shit. Go get me someone on the other side who is significantly better than 16 snaps in the AFC Championship game, Von Miller, or Dwan Smoot, who is okay but just another dude, or AJ Epinesa, who may be a little bit more than just another dude, but he ain't really that impactful. He is who he is. Go get me somebody that is going to get Pat Mahomes down, that is going to cause a fumble, that's going to get a strip sack in the second half of the game that you got to have. Because other than potentially Groot, which we ain't seen it from him either, that dude ain't on the roster. He's not. Now, for what it's worth, if it's me and I'm giving one big extension offseason to somebody who's already on this team, it's Christian Bedford. Lock him up. He's CB1. He's undisputed CB1. He could be CB1 on many teams around the NFL. I don't know that you could say the same for Greg Rousseau. All right, quick break, come back, and we're going to fly through plenty more of these coming up here right after this break. All right, I am back here, Podbag episode, answering your questions, your comments, your takes. And I've been talking for like 20 minutes or so. I don't know how these guys do it. I say this at least once a month. These guys like Joe Marino, man, who pounds this 5-10 episodes a week. Nuts. Get borderline losing my voice. Anyway, all right, let's go here. Mazvids, a regular on this show, big time commenter, not a big Josh Allen fan. Sorry, buddy, I'm calling you out, but it's true. But a lot of good insight he has almost daily here on the YouTube channel side. He says, from what I'm hearing, this year's draft, it's kind of soft on quarterbacks and wide receivers, but it's pretty stacked on the O-line, defensive edge, defensive tackles, and tight ends. I know Buffalo set a tight end, but they could hit gold with the DT and a defensive edge. All right, Maz, thank you for that. Gold, a little bit of a reach there. I'm with you in terms of taking a swing, though. Let me tell you this real quick. The Bills, as things stand right now, they have a first, 2 2s, and 2 4s, right? So 5 picks in the first 4 rounds. As things stand, I just got done explaining why I hope that doesn't end up being the case. I don't need a first. I don't even need one of the, I don't need 2 2s. Give me 1 2. If the Bills got to pay a first, a second, and something else to go get an impactful edge rusher, go do it. Well, let's just assume for the sake of discussion, they don't. Okay? They don't. They keep all their picks. Those first 5, I'll bet anybody right now that at a minimum, 2 of those first 4 picks, let alone they have 5, but just say 2 of their first 4 picks, they go to defensive line, no matter what. No matter if they make a trade or not, no matter if they sign an unrestricted free agent before the draft or not, no matter how it plays out, 100%, I will bet you right now the Bills sign at least, or I'm not sign, they draft at least 2 guys among their first 4 picks will be on that defensive line. There's just a lot to replace and or upgrade. I don't know if Vaughn's going to be back. Who else you got here? Dwan Smoot's a free agent. Don't know that they want him back. Austin Johnson's a free agent. Jordan Phillips probably done playing. Quentin Jefferson almost certainly not going to be back. They need depth right now. And this is an opportunity to go get some cheaply through the draft, develop some more defensive linemen, and I'd be willing to bet that's what the Bills are going to do. At Zibble Raid says, I love Matt Milano, but I'd actually be okay moving on with the trade. He's just a little too small and a little too injury prone. I honestly liked Dorian Williams out there and was hoping he'd be starting for the Ravens, even though it ended up with a W. All right, thanks for that, Zippo. Quickly, I'll say, tackling the end of your statement there. Matt Milano was a huge factor in that Ravens game. I mean, he had a sack. He stopped a 2-point conversion. Come on, man. Matt Milano was great in that game. If anything, that game would be the case to say, man, I'd really love to have Matt Milano back. I get what you're saying, though, as a whole. I think it's interesting. It is an interesting, one of the bigger interesting storylines potentially that happens this offseason. First of all, you said trade. I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but Matt Milano's got zero trade value. So let's just put that out there, right? But you can make a case from the Bills moving on from him. You got the injury history over the last couple of years. You got the age, 31 years old. Maybe his skills are starting to, I don't want to say erode, but decline a little bit. I mean, I don't think it's realistic to expect him next year to be 2022 Matt Milano, where he was an all-pro. That's a big ask. Even if he is healthy, he doesn't have to rehab this offseason or training camp. So that's going to be big potentially for the Bills. But I think it's fair to wonder if his skills are going to start to fall off that cliff a little bit. And you said you liked Dorian Williams a lot, which, by the way, I really do as well. Cutting him right now, pointless. That's not going to happen. They could cut him with a post-June 1st designation, which, by the way, I'll just quickly explain that. When I say right now, I mean like today as you're listening to this, but after the Super Bowl, when teams start to get down to off-season business, the Bills could cut Matt Milano. They don't get any cap savings by cutting him for the cap right away. So that's not going to happen. But they can still cut him early and post-designate him as June 1st, which means they could save $10 million against the cap. They did it last year with Trey White. That is certainly something to consider. For people who don't understand what that means, the Bills would get his cap savings. However, they wouldn't be able to start using that until June 1st, and until then, his cap would be on the books. So it's not really helping you immediately. It helps you over the summer if you want to sign a couple guys after June 1st. The Bills did it last year with like Claypool, MBS. Of course, that shit didn't work out. Gives you a little bit of pocket change for the regular season if you need it, signing draft picks, things of that nature. So it does get done. The Bills did it last year with Trey. That's a possibility at least. But, just like I said with Groot, how I'm scared off by how he looked against the Chiefs in the title game. I'm a big playoff guy, put a lot of stock into the playoffs. And Matt Milano was really, really good in the playoffs. Matt Milano was one of the best players on the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs over these last few weeks. So based on that, I think I'm going to keep him. I'm keeping him for another year. I'm banking on him having a full season, again, where he's not rehabbing his surgery. He's not trying to still get healthy with the knee, tearing the tricep, any of that stuff. He gets a chance to go into camp healthy. If he can not hurt himself again, him and Terrell Bernard, that could be great. But here's my caveat when it comes to Dorian Williams. I do like him a lot. I do think he's a capable starter. So if they do move on from Matt Milano, I can understand it. Dorian Williams, your third-round pick, he's going into his third season. You want to unload, you want to unlock him. I could be down with that. But let's just say they keep Milano. I don't want Dorian Williams just being a backup to Matt Milano like he was this past year. And I understand why this year. But my caveat is I'm spending a lot of time in the offseason getting him work at the Mike spot as well. Let him back up Terrell Bernard and Matt Milano. That way, if something happens to Bernard, you don't have to go to Joe Andreessen or Balin Spector, which to me would be a big drop-off in talent compared to Dorian Williams. Play Dorian Williams at either spot. And then, of course, you give him some 4-3 looks. He's your third linebacker. So I feel like you could still potentially get plenty from Dorian Williams, even if he's not a quote-unquote starter. But just don't pigeonhole him into thinking or treating him like he's exclusively that third linebacker or just a backup for Milano. He did it in college. He played some Mike. I think he's got the ability to play some Mike. So I would make that a big priority to work on that this offseason. At Grizzle says, Mahomes on the Bills would be reeling from the same playoff exits. It's the coaching. Look, these are hearsay, we'll never know. These are the type of scenarios you'll never know. All right. I'm not discrediting. So without discrediting Mahomes, it would be naive to say He hasn't benefited from having Andy Reid, one of the greatest minds offensively to ever coach football. It'd be naive to say that. It'd be naive to say that Patrick Mahomes hasn't benefited from having arguably the greatest tight end to ever play the game. It would also be naive to say that Patrick Mahomes hasn't benefited from having a defense that has, by and large, carried the Kansas City Chiefs a lot over these past 2 years, for sure. But he's still the best when it matters. All right, let's just be clear about that. Saying anything else to me, it's almost hating. Come on. Josh Allen, I love Josh, okay? Josh has played, we'll just use the last 2 years because 2021, Josh played one of the greatest playoff games and a loss you're ever going to see in your life, okay? We all know that, right? Well, we'll just go these last 2 years. Josh Allen has certainly played well enough to win these last 2 years. People have let him down around him. Kincaid would have dropped. Stephon Diggs would have dropped last year. Trent Sherfield with 2 drops last year. Things have happened around him, but Josh Allen has also not played a clean game and been perfect, all right? The difference between them two, while saying Josh has played well enough for the Bills to win, been a lot of factors, but Patrick Mahomes has made that extra clutch play when he's had to. He's made that perfect read, that pre-snap read when he's had to. He's made that perfect progression read when he's had to. He's made that perfect throw when he's had to. He's taken off running when he's had to in all these close games that have mattered. He shows why in these games, why he's the best, okay? And again, we'll never know, but Mahomes probably makes a difference. If you want to trade the quarterbacks and it's the same scenarios, I feel like at least in one of those 2 playoff losses over the last 2 years, I feel like a Patrick Mahomes play that he makes that Josh didn't might be a difference, probably is a difference in that game. And again, nobody loves Josh Allen more than me, but to say Mahomes, to suggest it's a product largely of coaching, and if he were with the Bills, it wouldn't be any different. I don't buy that. I do think it's a factor. I do think there are layers to it, but Patrick Mahomes is the best. And he just, again, he's made a couple more plays than Josh. Let's just say what it is. This is Tooch. What was the point of keeping James Cook on a pitch count to stay fresh and healthy during the regular season and into the playoffs, just not to use him in the biggest game that they played? Look, clearly people are still mad about that. I get it. So am I. I promise you I am. Bottom line is they stuck with what got them there to a fault at times. Ty Johnson is that third down back. Ty Johnson is their 2-minute back. Ty Johnson is their more trusted pass blocker. Ray Davis sucks up some carries. Wasn't pertinent to this Chiefs game, but all season long, Ray Davis would close out a lot of games, running the ball, between the tackles when the Bills are nursing a lead. As a result of all that, James Cook only played about 45% of the snaps all year. That continued into the Chiefs game. And I'm not defending Joe Brady whatsoever, okay? James Cook absolutely should have had the ball more early on in this game. No question about it. And he certainly should have at least touched it on the last drive. Time was not a factor in that at all. No question in my mind. It is on Joe Brady. Joe Brady had a very bad night, straight up. But they didn't deviate from what they did all season long. They just didn't. And I hate it. It still makes me mad right now. I still think it's a major reason why the Bills didn't score another 7 to 10 points in this game. No new wrinkles. Where's the jet sweep? Where's the adjustment going to the other side of the tush push? Where's things they haven't done before? You didn't see any of it. And James Cook should have had more touches because he was borderline unstoppable. He only had 16 touches. He should have had another 6 to 8. So I get you. I'm mad. That's on Joe Brady. At Josiah Clark, 42-46, the Bills need to go get George Pickens. Man, what? Dude, no chance. No chance of that happening. This team does not need a guy like that in the locker room or on the sidelines. He's talented. He's plenty talented. All right, but you know what? The Bills are plenty good enough, and there's plenty good enough wide receivers that are available out there that can at least help what's a very good to great offense as it is without that shit show. You don't need that. A guy who's going to get into it with the coaches, the quarterback, the coordinator, referees, fans, maybe. We've seen it time and time again. I don't know what it is with these talented temperamental receivers with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but the vibes that this team has, it's the last thing that they need. All right, a couple more here. That was it for the Bills. Got one Sabres one right here. And I'll try to keep my composure for this. I've been in a good mood. Chad Burke says, why is your hatred for the Sabres so out of control? What we're seeing this year is pretty much par for the course. Well, Chad, thank you for that, by the way. Yeah, I'm over it, man. I'm over it. This team pisses me off. They're insulting. It's embarrassing. I feel bad, not for people like me, not for people like me. I feel bad for legitimate, true blue Sabres fans who continue to buy tickets, buy the merchandise, and buy a lot of the bullshit that they're selling in hopes that they're eventually going to turn shit around because they're not serious. They're not committed. Nobody in this earth is going to convince me otherwise. But in terms of why my hatred for the Sabres is so out of control, well, think about this year alone, Chad. Think about this year alone, all right? They are last, dead last in the Eastern Conference by multiple games, multiple points. And it's not a sample size anymore. They're 53 games in. They got less than 30 games left in the season. They are dead last. Nobody in the entire conference is worse than the Buffalo Sabres. And they are in the general manager's fifth full season in charge. 5 seasons, 5 full seasons in charge. And the Sabres are dead ass last. Like, how fucking patient are you supposed to be with this hockey team before you finally say, you know what? Piss on them. Piss on this team. They're not, and he's still the general manager. Now, if he was fired and they were trying to make some moves, maybe I'd have a different reaction to being dead last. But they're dead last in a season where your general manager's in his 5th season and they ain't doing a fucking thing about it. Nothing. Nothing. So how long are you supposed to wait? Okay, so you got that. And then you got this joke of a general manager in Kevin Adams. And that press conference, I'm still not even past that either. The whole palm trees press conference where he just said so many stupid things. And it's no wonder why. And I've heard this from hockey people, okay? Nobody around the league respects Kevin Adams. Other general managers don't respect him. Why are you going to do business with him when you don't respect somebody? Or if they do, they're going to try to fleece you so bad because they just assume that you're an absolute idiot, which when you hear him talk at a press conference and say the shit he said is just idiotic. A national disgrace, a national punchline after that. How many people now on social media have fucking palm trees in their avatar because of Kevin Adams? And then not long after that, your absentee owner who you never hear from, which actually I'm actually fine with because you can't talk worse shit anyway, but you hear reports that your owner meets with the team before a Montreal game in Montreal and says the solution is in the room. And then the solution was to go out that night and get the shit kicked out of them by the lowly Montreal Canadiens. Just an absolute joke, man. And then you get to the pinnacle, which for me, was the pinnacle this past Sunday when they're playing the Devils and Tage Thompson is skating and almost gets fucking decapitated by a cheap shot from somebody from New Jersey and nobody does shit. They froze. They froze. They could say they didn't see it. Guess what? It takes 5 seconds to look up at the Jumbotron afterwards and they're worried about 2 points. A team that's dead last in the conference was more concerned about 2 points than handling business, Dakota hockey, when not only any player, but literally your best fucking player gets laid out with a cheap shot. Like Gilbert, somebody on that team. Samuelson was on the ice and didn't do shit, who, by the way, is now on injury reserve. I don't care if he comes back Saturday after the break, whenever. I hope he gets booed out of the arena next time he plays for the Sabres at a home game because he fucking deserves it. He deserves it. But if you're Gilbert, you're somebody, I don't give a shit. Skate off the bench and go after somebody. I don't care if you get a 10 or 20 game suspension. Who gives a shit? You ain't going nowhere anyway. Show your team, show your fan base that you give a shit. In the locker room afterwards, disgusting, disgusting. Players talking about getting 2 points, that they didn't see it. Like you can't go make someone else pay the price for it. Come on. And don't get it twisted. They got in a fight the next, Columbus. Gilbert drops the gloves, goes with the Columbus tough guy 3 seconds in the game, obviously pre-planned. Don't get that shit twisted. That's a Sabres PR stunt, basically. Fuck out of here. And Lindy Ruff, man, I have loved Lindy Ruff. A favorite of mine, an all-time favorite of mine. Great coach. Was a great player when he was here. And I feel at this point his legacy is just being soiled right now. It's being pissed on. Some of it's his own fault, though. Let's be clear about that. But his legacy is not just being tainted. I feel like his legacy is being pissed on. Somebody on Blue Sky actually made a good comment. I gotta throw some love there. Bill's chick who said, I was bitching about this. She goes, hopefully it'll be like Marv Levy. Like when Marv Levy was GM, nobody remembers that shit anymore. They just remember him being a Hall of Fame coach and 10,000 years old. Hopefully, this season with Lindy Ruff, people don't remember because this is just disgraceful. It's disgraceful. And I don't know when it comes to him, did he fully not understand how soft physically and mentally his hockey team is? Does he not hold them to the same standards as he did with the past teams? I don't know. Okay. But that's an issue. His comments sucked at the press conference after the Devils game. They were all over the place, confusing, irritating, hard to listen to. And who knows? Has the game passed him by? Is he too old now? Do players not relate to him? I mean, these players don't seem to relate to fucking anybody because they don't take any accountability. They say, well, okay, this can't happen. We got to be better. Got to do this, got to do that. And then they don't. And I know some people out there are going to point to the streak, the 13-game winless streak. That's the reason for everything. You know, they'll say they've led the team in goals since Christmas. They have. They went 10-7-1 after the losing streak. They did. They're 22-16-2, not counting the streak for the season. That'd be a playoff base. I get it. People say that. Rasmus Dahlin missed 9 games during that 13-game winless streak. Shit's all true. But I don't give a shit. I don't care. You don't get to take 3 weeks off or whatever during the season, 13 games in pro sports. You just don't. Every team has adversity. Every team has injuries. You overcome it. And not only did they go winless, and a lot of those games, they look lifeless. Like they were laying down for half that streak. It's disgusting. Disgusting. This team, this organization, you know, not only do they remain losers, but they're literally cellar dwellers, okay? They're cellar dwellers. Last in the conference. Not only are they going to retake, you know, the lead from the Jets for the longest drought in all pro sports, but they are a national laughingstock. The national media, the national fans, former fucking players in the organization, just making fun of them relentlessly and ripping them because they deserve it, okay? And last but not least, I feel like they are an unlikable group of mostly non-taking accountability sissies in my book, okay? Go get a general manager who's actually going to shake shit up, and then I'll revisit this. Until then, that organization, inside out, on the ice, off the ice, soft, straight up. At BeastMe118, who will win the WWE Elimination Chamber? Quickly here, because I don't want to take him any more time. Men's, John Cena is going to win the men's, I think. I could see him and Cody Rhodes as that like night 2 main event properly built. You know, can John Cena make history with the 17th world title run? Maybe that catapults Cody Rhodes to get over as a heel. Who knows? Women's, I don't know. You know, I'm going to go with Bianca Belair just because I don't think they could have Becky Lynch come back, enter and win and get right into a main event at WrestleMania. There's not a lot of other credible challengers right now for Rhea Ripley. I would have said Elo Sky, but it kind of looks like her and Rhea might actually have that match at the Elimination Chamber itself. So I'll go with Bianca. Last one here. At Vine Squasher says, I'm bored. Give me a good TV show recommendation. That Sabres rant kind of almost killed the rest of my voice, man. Shit's hurting right now, dudes. All right. Good TV show recommendation. I don't watch a lot, but I'll tell you about one. It's a great medical drama series. It's called The Pit. It's on HBO Max right now. It's a new show, first season. As I record this, it's 5 episodes in. New episode drop Thursdays at 9 p.m. Noah Wiley stars in this. He's best known for being on ER years ago. The EP of this show is John Wells. He was the EP, the executive producer for both ER and The West Wing. I think the best way I would describe this right now is if ER and House and the TV show 24 had a threesome. Parts of all that. Like you got the old school feel of ER, the advanced mysteries that you get solved with the House, with the show House. Plus, it was a little more personal about the characters. And then 24, like that 24-hour timeline, like each episode is an hour in the day, which is what this show is. It's awesome, man. So if you like those shows, you combine them. I think you could love this. Still in its first season, so who knows? But so far, they're in the kind of, you're still getting to know the characters phase. And I love it so far, man. Like I am invested in pretty much every character that they presented so far. We'll wait and see, but this definitely has a chance to be a great one. My wife's watching with me too, and she's a big fan as well. So that is what I would go with right now. So if you're looking for something new to at least check out, give it a look. I would definitely say The Pit on Max. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. I will be back one more episode for the week. So on that note, talk to you guys tomorrow.